What do you think of when you think of Nintendo? There's so many possible no, who are we kidding? It's Mario, baby. This big red plumber is synonymous with Nintendo, and every single Nintendo console, be it home console or handheld, has had multiple Mario games to call its own. Today, we're going to be going through every single Nintendo console ever released to give you both the best and worst Mario game that appeared on said console. To clarify a couple of things, when I say a Mario game, I mean Mario has to be in the title and he has to be on the box. Luigi's Mansion, Super Smash Bros., and like Donkey Kong Bonanza do not count for this video. On top of that, because this video is about specific consoles themselves, we're not going to do any ports here. The game has to be original for that console. No remasters, remakes, or nothing like that. Finally, some consoles, in fact a lot of Nintendo consoles, were just on a straight heater when it comes to their Mario games. So while yes, this video is best and worst, for some of these consoles it's really best and like least best. We're going to be going through all the home consoles first, then the handhelds, then finish it off with the Switch and Switch 2 hybrid consoles at the end, so let's just jump right into it. This is the best and worst Mario game for every single Nintendo console. The original Super Mario Bros. On the Nintendo Entertainment System was a smash hit of smash hits. It basically saved the entire home console video game industry and spawned one of the most successful media franchises of all time. Nintendo knew they had to capitalize on this title, but Super Mario Bros. 2 was kind of a tricky subject. For overseas audiences, Nintendo took a completely different game called Doki Doki Panic and just reskinned it as Mario Bros. 2. This was ironically one of my first introductions to the 2D Mario platforming series. I originally played this game on my Game Boy as Super Mario Advance, but no matter how you played it, this title was really weird. You would end levels by walking into a big bird's mouth. Super Mario Bros. 2 is a very bizarre game. However, it's not the worst Mario game on the NES, because what Japan got instead is so much worse. The original Super Mario Bros. 2, known overseas as the Lost Levels, often gets described as one of the most true sequels that there is. In terms of difficulty, people say that it picks up right where the last game left off. And yeah, that's kind of true. This game is ridiculously hard, but it's not hard in a Mario sense. It's hard in like a 2006 Flash game sense. This game is a complete troll, solely designed to make players rage over and over again. I mean, the first mushroom in the game literally kills you. To its credit, this game was intended for extremely hardcore Mario Bros. Fans. It was meant to put their skills to the test, and for that, it's pretty neat. But again, it doesn't put your skills to the test in a way that seems fair. Arguably, the only way to get enjoyment out of this title is if you're a complete sadist who doesn't mind having to redo entire levels just because a random invisible block at the end kills you. And that is not an uncommon occurrence. That's in like every single level. Super Mario Bros. 2 is a fun footnote in Mario's history. And for mega fans of the franchise, I'd say it's worth testing out at least once to see how devious they truly got, because no matter what I say, it's 10 times worse than what you're thinking. However, there is a reason Nintendo only decided to inflict this pain on their Japanese customers. Mario Bros. 2 The Lost Levels is certainly the worst Mario game on the NES. If Super Mario Bros. 2 is technically a true sequel because it picks up right where the last one left off in terms of difficulty, Super Mario Bros. 3 is the perfect sequel because it's an insane step up from the first title in nearly every single way. Releasing in 1988, Nintendo pushed the NES to its absolute limits with this title, and it's kind of crazy to look at this and believe that they're running on the same hardware. Not only is the sprite work obviously way better, but the game itself just does so much. The introduction of the iconic world map, tons of brand new power-ups, enemies, and gimmicks. It's Mario 3. There's really not much to say. This is an absolutely iconic game, one of the best sequels of all time, and was able to cement Mario as the golden boy of the gaming industry just 3 years after the original game's release. In terms of the worst Mario game on the SNES, there are some obvious picks. Games like Mario's Time Machine, Mario is Missing, and the Mario's Early Years titles are notoriously panned by pretty much everyone. However, these are like educational preschool games. And to be honest, including these would make for a pretty boring list, so I'm just gonna exclude them entirely. Would you really want Hello Mario as the worst Switch game? Get real. For this video, we're sticking to the real, widely appealing games that are meant for everyone, because in my opinion, that's what Mario is. kids. Mario is meant for everyone. Mario's Time Machine is meant for 3-year-olds. Therefore, while yes, it has Mario on the box and Mario in the title, those sorts of games are not eligible for this video. And that leads us to probably the most controversial worst pick in this entire video. Mario Paint is obviously a fine game, and I'm sure for some people it's even great. Released in 1992, Mario Paint came with the SNES mouse, and that is essential as Mario Paint is essentially a digital art suite with a Mario flair. I'm sure it was cool to be able to make digital art on your SNES all the way back in 92. There are some fun smaller like mini game type things in here, like the fly swatting mini game, and the whole package just has this really charming Mario flair. When it comes to making a Mario themed digital art suite in 1992, I don't think they could have done better than this. With that being said, this is still a digital art suite from 1992. Let's look at some of the other Mario games on the SNES, stuff like Super Mario World, Super Mario Kart, and Super Mario RPG. These are all stellar games that not only were great when they released, but still hold up even when compared to modern entries. Many people, including myself, still think Super Mario World is the best 2D Mario game of all time. Now let's compare Mario Paint to modern entries. Well, first of all, there weren't really any modern entries. However, this isn't really actually a game. It's more of a digital art suite, as I've said multiple times. Comparing this as a digital art suite to modern digital art suites, and no one would ever use this. It was cool for the time, but it's nothing more than a novelty now. Compared to the other Mario games on the SNES, Paint has by far the least replayability, and to be honest, like actual gameplay. So while this isn't a bad title, I can't say it's actually better than any of the other Mario games on the SNES. Therefore, it's unfortunately in the worst category, and I'm sure a lot of you disagree with this, but if you disagree and drop a comment saying you disagree, please let me know what other game you would put. I already said I'm not counting the like preschool games, and I don't want to include any ports or collections, so stuff like Mario All-Stars and Tetris and Dr. Mario aren't eligible either. So let me know, what other game do you think is worse than this? Because I really don't think there is one on the SNES. The Super Nintendo has some of the best Mario games of all time. I know I'll probably say that a couple of times throughout this video, but with the SNES, it's really as true as any other console. The increase in power from the original NES meant that developers could just absolutely run wild. Because Mario was on such a hot streak during this generation, it should be tough to pick the best game. Super Mario RPG is an incredibly charming title, and Super Mario Kart spawned one of the best and most successful series ever made. However, it's a testament to greatness that I say neither of those can even really come close. Super Mario World is one of the best 2D platformers ever made, and there's really nothing else to say. Releasing in 1991 alongside the Super Nintendo, World showed that Nintendo was being limited by the NES, and now that they were playing with superpower, the possibilities were truly limitless. It's hard to find a game that hits you with so much creativity so consistently throughout its entire runtime, but Super Mario World does just that. There are so many iconic little nuggets from this game that I can't even begin to list them all here. The sound effects still permeate popular culture, like I see them in frequent TikToks and stuff like that, to the point where I don't even think people realize they're from Super Mario World. Same thing with the music. Hell, even Yoshi spawned from this game. Everyone loves Yoshi, therefore everyone should love Super Mario World. Alright, technically the Virtual Boy is a home console. Released in 1995, this is by far Nintendo's biggest failure, and for some reason they're bringing it back with the Switch 2, but positioning it as like a big thing. I have absolutely no idea why Nintendo is pushing Virtual Boy Nintendo Switch Online so hard. It's a neat novelty for the most hardcore of Nintendo fans, but that's about it. This console absolutely flopped when it came out, and because of that, there really weren't many games on this thing. In fact, it only has 2 Mario games, being Mario Tennis and Mario Clash. Well, I guess that makes my job easier. Mario Clash is the worst game for the Virtual Boy. It's not that bad, at least by Virtual Boy standards, but it's just a worse looking version of the original Mario Bros. Arcade game. While technically you could argue this is like just a reimagining of that game, so it's kind of breaking my rule I set out of like no remakes, ports, or whatever. There's literally only 2 Mario games on this console, so give me a break. My hot take is I've never really been a huge fan of the arcade game. I played it a decent amount because it was actually included with that Super Mario Advance Game Boy game that I was talking about earlier, so it's not like I haven't logged my hours in this thing, I just don't think it's that fun. Taking this game and turning it into a version that gives me scoliosis and a migraine definitely doesn't do it any favors. Mario Tennis has blossomed into one of the most successful Mario spin-offs out there. However, it got its very humble beginnings on the Virtual Boy. Mario Tennis is kind of the only actually playable game from the Virtual Boy, at least quality-wise. It's pretty much what you would expect. It's tennis, and it uses the depth feature of the Virtual Boy pretty well. However, it's still a relatively bare-bones Mario Tennis game, which makes sense, but, you know, it's gotta be doing something really good in order for me to actually want to play it, because, again, my eyes hurt after like 5 minutes of playing this. However, it technically sneaks into the best spot, just on a technicality, because, again, there's no other games I could even pick from. The Nintendo 64 had a killer lineup of Mario games, kicking off the Mario Party franchise with 3 really good entries, having 2 stellar sports games as well as classics like Mario 64, Mario Kart 64, and Paper Mario. Although the game I chose for this section might not be bad, the clear winner for the worst N64 Mario game easily goes to Dr. Mario 64. Now, this isn't even really bad. It's the only Dr. Mario game in the whole franchise with an actual story, so in this case, it really is just the least good N64 game. You play as either Mario or Wario, tracking down the Mega Vitamins and facing off against the CPUs. I've never been a super big fan of the Dr. Mario gameplay, but once again, this is a fine game, but that's what makes lists like these fun, because it is still technically the worst N64 Mario game. Before we get to the best, I just have to say, if you're enjoying this video and like what we're doing here, it would mean a lot if you could subscribe. We're trying to reach 400,000 subscribers. We just hit 300K, so we're a long way away, but you gotta start somewhere. And so I'm starting right here, right now, asking you to subscribe if you haven't already. You'll get a lot more high quality Nintendo content sent to your feed if you tell YouTube you like the content. So it would seriously help us out, it would help you out, and it would make me very happy. Anyway, thank you guys, let's get back to the video. Mario Kart 64 launched the Plumbers racing games into 3D, and solidified them as probably the best local multiplayer game that money can buy. The original Paper Mario truly showed how creative Mario RPGs can get, and spawned an entire series that's had some masterpieces of its own. However, it's not even a question, Super Mario 64 is the best Mario game on the N64. More than any other game on this list, this game defined its respective console. The N64 kind of introduced 3D and the analog controller to the world, and Mario 64 was the perfect showcase for it. Who knows where we would be if this game didn't come out when it came out. It's unbelievable to think that what is still generally considered one of the greatest 3D platformers of all time nailed it on their very first try within this third dimension. There is some jank for sure. I'm not one of those people who thinks this is an absolutely perfect game that still holds up flawlessly, but I also don't think you could point to a single game from 1996 that still holds up flawlessly. I'll tell you what, 64 holds up a lot better than most other titles, to the point that it's still a fun time for people to boot up and play. Teaching an entire generation how to control characters in a 3D space is already a tough challenge, but to do that while also being one of the greatest games ever made is damn near impossible. But Super Mario 64 did just that, represented the console it was on, is synonymous with the console it released on, and is by far the N64's best Mario title. Once again, the GameCube has possibly the most consistent lineup of Mario games, and I honestly can't say any of these are bad. DDR Mario Mix could be argued as the worst one, but it's kind of just a goofy dancing game. It doesn't really shoot to do anything that great, but it doesn't mess up either. In baseball terms, it's aiming for a single and hits a single, while other games aim for a home run but fail in several key aspects. So out of every good game here, I think the worst Mario GameCube game comes down to one of the 4 Mario Parties. And out of Mario Parties 4 through 7, 5 easily stands out as the weakest of the bunch. We went over this in our Mario Party game ranking from a year ago, but Mario Party 5 is almost single-handedly ruined by its capsule system. Capsules in later games are actually a really fun addition, adding quite a bit of strategy to spice up the board, but Mario Party 5 is basically the guinea pig for this whole system. In this game, capsules are not balanced at all. They give them out way too generously. I mean, it's free, and there's a bunch of places to get them in every single board, which slows down pacing a ton. Not only do you have to get the capsule and sit through that animation, but then you have to sit through basically every single turn someone placing a capsule before they roll. Turning the entire board into capsule spam just wastes time. Because the capsules hold most of the action, this severely hurts the boards themselves. There's little to no distinction between boards in this game besides the aesthetics. Boards that come out before and after this title in the Mario Party series would all end up having interesting hooks, even from Mario Party games I didn't particularly like. unique. But because of the capsules, the boards themselves in Mario Party 5 have little identity with no real central hook to pull you in. Mario Party 5 is not a horrible game. In fact, it's kind of like right in the middle of my Mario Party game tier list. But it's definitely worse than Mario Party 4, 6, and 7, and there's not another GameCube Mario game that I really could say is that much worse. Choosing the best Mario game for the GameCube was one of the hardest picks out of this entire list. The GameCube had a near perfect run with Mario games. Mario Sunshine, despite being a little divisive and riddled with bugs, is still an excellent platformer, holding tons of that GameCube charm. Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door is considered the best Paper Mario game. Even the sports games were some of the best we've ever seen, with Mario Golf, Toadstool Tour, Strikers, Mario Power Tennis, but the best Mario game for the GameCube, in my opinion, is Mario Kart Double Dash. Despite only having 16 tracks, the selection here is incredible. It's quality over quantity, introducing iconic tracks like DK Mountain, Daisy Cruiser, and of course, Baby Park. Oh god, Baby Park. 2 players per kart felt like the first real gameplay change-up that this franchise needed. Double Dash also introduced the double item box, and in my opinion, this is the only game to actually properly utilize that. I always felt like the entire point of the double item box is so that you can swap between the items depending on the situation, and Double Dash is the only game where that's actually possible. Special items in particular spice things up here, giving all the character combos to pick from a unique identity to call their own. Stuff like All Cup Tour and a really fun battle mode make Double Dash one of the most replayable Mario Kart games ever. But above all, this is the couch co-op GameCube game. Maybe you could argue Melee has it beat, but since it's not a Mario game, Double Dash takes the cake here. To me, the GameCube is a local multiplayer titan. That's where this console really shines. And Double Dash just simply takes the cake in that regard. Nothing in the Mario Kart franchise before or after this beats working with your friend as one person drives and the other handles items. Sunshine is an absolutely phenomenal game, and I can completely understand other people saying it's the best Mario game on the GameCube, but for my money, Double Dash is where it's at. The Nintendo Wii had yet another stellar lineup of Mario games. The 3D games, sports games, and spin-offs were all pretty great. Super Mario All-Stars 25th Anniversary Edition was pretty lazy and would probably be my pick, but again, no ports. Just like how I want every best game in this video to be the best showcase that represents each specific console, the worst game as well, I want to exemplify everything the console shouldn't be. So a clear pick with that criteria in mind is Mario Party 9. Mario Party 9 showcases the dumbing down of certain games to appeal to the Wii's casual audience. After Mario Party 8, in my opinion being the best Mario Party game ever, NDCube took over the series and punted it off a cliff with this title, throwing everything that's inherently good about Mario Party out of the window, and forcing everybody in a car is just not it. This feels more like a Mario Party spin-off than anything else. The minigames are still fine, and graphically, this is a huge step up from any other Mario Party game. But when you take a beloved franchise and radically shift its core gameplay to this degree, you have to make sure that shift actually works. Forcing everyone in a car together makes this game far more linear than past Mario Party games. Linearity is probably the worst possible thing for this type of game because it kills replayability. My hunch is that after 8 games of Mario Party already, with all these extra mechanics and things to keep track of, alongside the Wii's uber casual audience, they chose the car mechanic to streamline the game and be more appealing to like kids and families. But considering Mario Party 9 sold almost a third of what 8 did, yeah, that probably didn't work out for them. I feel like the Wii generation is where some of these games still hold up entirely as some of the best Mario games of all time. The Mario Galaxy games, of course, Mario Kart Wii, New Super Mario Bros. Wii, even the sports games were stellar here, with Sluggers still putting modern Mario sports games to shame. I mean, seriously, that game had like an adventure mode and a wealth of content on top of just being Mario Baseball, which in my opinion is the most fun Mario sports game. But out of all of these games, one stands alone as truly the best Mario game and the representation of the Wii. Super Mario Galaxy is one of the most iconic video games ever made. Apart from getting its own movie, it's hard to find a game in a series as beloved as Mario to really call a fan favorite. Most Mario games, you could argue, are fan favorites, but Galaxy stands above, and it's for a reason. Frequently ditching the more adventure exploration focus of Super Mario 64 and Sunshine, Galaxy opts for more linear levels most of the time. Combining this with the space setting allowing for tons of new enemies and gimmicks, and the gravity mechanic that somehow actually works and works well, Mario Galaxy is just one of those universal games where even if it's not for you, you can't help but applaud how much of a true masterpiece it is. It quite literally took 3D Mario to new heights, pushing the series in a direction that people didn't really see possible, with its grand orchestral score and dramatic pre-rendered cutscenes. The best video games simultaneously subvert your expectations while also giving you everything you could have wanted. Galaxy is littered with smaller, calmer, and quieter moments. However, these moments work in this serene space setting as small little breathers between the bombastic set pieces. It's Mario Galaxy. I really don't know what else to say. I mean, Mario Galaxy 2 would be the only game in my opinion that could, knock this one off the throne. However, while I'll concede Mario Galaxy 2 has far better power-ups and often better level design, as a complete package factoring in story, vibes, and just general cohesiveness, Mario Galaxy is the best game on Wii. Throughout this entire video, there have been multiple games that don't actually really fit into the worst section. They just happen to go there, but they're not actually bad games. This is not one of those cases. Mario Tennis Ultra Smash for the Wii U freaking sucks, man. This game is a straight up embarrassment. It feels like a tech demo. It's not just underwhelming, it is incomplete. This is easily the worst Mario sports game, and it's not even close. It might even be the worst Mario game. There is no content here. This is just normal tennis with a mega mushroom. There are way less courts than usual, no meaningful single-player content, and bare-bones modes to boot. With zero proper progression or any reason to keep playing, the only thing this game does is provide a pretty good-looking, yet horrendously bland Mario sports game. If you bought this game, I'm sorry for you. If you've been watching the channel, you know what I'm about to say, baby. You know what game I'm about to glaze, because I've been glazing this game for pretty much the last 8 years I've been running this channel. Oh, yes! Oh, and you know what? I hope to glaze it for 8 more, because Super Mario 3D World is that guy. This game holds such a special place in my heart, and it's one of those titles that, to be honest, I really didn't see anyone defend. At least when I started this channel, every time I'd say 3D World was like one of my favorite Mario games ever, the comments would vehemently disagree, but now everyone seems to love this game, and I honestly can't help but, hope at least that my rampant glazing is a part of that. Because if I can get people to understand why this game is so special to me, this whole YouTube thing will have been worth it. Super Mario 3D World is a very linear Mario game. In fact, at times it doesn't feel dissimilar to 2D Mario. The levels are on a timer, there's rarely any branching paths, pretty much zero exploration, and you just run to the flagpole. However, while games like New Super Mario Bros. Will maybe introduce a couple of new power-ups and that's about it, Super Mario 3D World has a new gimmick for straight up every single level. The bar of consistent creativity that gets set here I don't think is beat by any other Mario game, and part of that is due to these small bite-sized levels, allowing the developers to just dream up something crazy and then throw it away without a second thought. If you've watched me talk about this game for any amount of time, you'll know that I not only love it as a single-player title, but I believe it truly excels as a multiplayer game. This is the only 3D Mario with actual multiplayer, and because of that, it's still my favorite 3D Mario. The multiplayer in this game is absolutely chaotic mayhem, but in the best way possible. Obviously, you have to work together to try and beat the level, but you want to be getting as many points as possible so you can capture that glorious crown. What does this crown actually do? Well, nothing. It shows up on your head when you get into the next level, players can steal it, and whoever ends with the crown will end up getting an additional 5,000 points, which kind of helps you get the crown in the next time. However, there's no actual gameplay ramifications of the crown. It won't even keep track of like how many times you win the game in a row. So it's a testament to how beautifully designed this game is, that even with no actual gameplay ramifications, this crown still means so much to me, and every time I play this game, be it with my sisters or my friends, if you beat the level but don't get the crown, it feels like you might as well have lost the level. That's a testament to how fun this game is, that something as superfluous as this crown can lead to so much enjoyment. If you haven't played this game in multiplayer, you haven't really played this game. 3D World is that guy. I said it before, I'll say it again, I'll say it next video, I'll say it the one after that. I love this game. We've made it to the end of Nintendo's dedicated home consoles. So let's jump into the handhelds, starting off with the Game Boy. The worst Mario game on the Game Boy has to be Mario's Picross, which is a relatively uninspired but ultimately harmless puzzle game that most of the time doesn't even really feel like it's Mario related at all. Picross kind of feels like a mix between Minesweeper and Sudoku. And again, this is not a bad title, far from it. You can have fun here, but ultimately this is a puzzle with no video game elements. You could print this out and play it on paper. More importantly, it's a puzzle game that came out on the Game Boy, which should honestly be renamed the Tetris Machine. Comparing Mario's Picross to Tetris is is like comparing a Hot Wheels to an actual car. I don't know who would ever play Mario's Picross when you could just play Tetris on the same console. Like, they're not the same game at all, but Tetris is just that good, and Mario's Picross is just kinda eh. In the same way that Super Mario Bros. 3 on the NES is the perfect sequel to Super Mario Bros., Mario Land 2 kind of reaches similar heights as a sequel to Mario Land. Mario Land on the Game Boy was cool. It was a Mario game on the Game Boy. That was kind of all it was, though. It's not an incredible Mario game. In fact, I would kind of argue it's not even that good of a Mario game. However, it's a miracle they even got a 2D platformer on this thing to begin with. Mario Land 2, though, honestly sometimes makes you forget you're playing on the original Game Boy, because this thing is fun. Land 2 actually has some of that signature Mario charm and brilliant level design that you've come to know and love from the series. It holds up okay, which obviously isn't, incredibly high praise, but again, it holds up better than any other game on the Game Boy for Mario, so it definitely deserves the best slot. Moving on to the Game Boy Color, and I'm gonna break the rules a bit for this one, because choosing a best-worst game in the Game Boy Color lineup is weird. It only had about a 3-year lifespan, with Nintendo barely making any exclusives for it. It's a lot like the DSi, where it was more of a mid-generation refresh rather than a proper successor. Considering there's only 3 Mario games exclusive to the Game Boy Color to begin with, the options here are pretty slim, and one of them is just a port of the original Super Mario Bros. Game. Super Mario Bros. Deluxe is just that. It's a souped-up version of the original Mario Bros. For the NES. It includes the base game, lost levels as an unlock, and some new features like boo races, a challenge mode, and a versus mode for 2 players. Still a port though, so it's technically invalid. That leaves us with just Mario Tennis and Golf as the only exclusives, but even then, these are basically sports sim RPGs with Mario on the box. Just to get the comments off my back, I would say I like Golf over Tennis, solely because I feel like the turn-based nature of Golf makes it easier to play on a console like the Game Boy, rather than Mario Tennis. But again, these are actually pretty great RPGs, but they're barely Mario sports games, and the only 2 games for the Game Boy Color. The Game Boy Advance is a weird console when it comes to the Big Red Plumber. You could point to something like Mario Party Advance. Many people absolutely dog on this game, and for good reason. It's straight up not a Mario Party game. However, if you change the title to something different, I don't know, maybe like Mario Festival Advance, then this game actually has some merit. It has an entire story mode where you play mini games while managing your mushrooms. If you run out, you gotta start over, so it's got strategy, fun enough mini games, and a good story. That leaves us with Mario's Pinball Land. This game tries to mash pinball with platforming, and in doing so kind of fails at both. The physics don't really feel right at all. It's just boring and tedious. You don't try and rack up a score, but rather hit enemies and objects to collect stars and progress through different levels. This means you have to be extremely precise where you want to hit and where to go, because if the ball falls, you can lose multiple levels worth of progress. Again, this might not be a really bad game, but it's definitely not a good game. It just kind of is, and I say that as someone who does actually enjoy pinball video games. Specifically, the mobile app Pinout is one of my favorite games of all time. Mario's Pinball Land, though, is just, it just kinda is what it is. Considering most Mario games on the GBA are just ports of older NES and SNES titles, and the original games ended up being a bizarre amalgamation of mid, like Mario vs. Donkey Kong, Mario Party Advance, Dr. Mario and Puzzle League, and Mario Party E. The only Mario games on the GBA I'd classify as good are Mario Kart Super Circuit, which was a stripped-down Mario Kart experience, and the 2 tennis and golf games, but just like the Game Boy Color games, those are Mario sports games really in name alone. They're more so RPGs than anything, and speaking of RPGs, there's one clear winner for the best in my opinion, that is Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga. Not only does this just feel like the Mario game that embodies the Game Boy Advance the most, but it's also one that kickstarted off the entire Mario & Luigi franchise, and it also has one of the best and most fun campaigns in any Mario RPG in general. Compared to modern titles today, it can feel a bit quaint, but new additions like Bros Moves were super creative. Even the idea of controlling Mario and Luigi with separate buttons is genius and makes battles engaging. You don't necessarily play this game for the battles though, you play it for the writing, and the writing is some of the best in the entire franchise, being funny without being cringy and trying too hard. Not to mention, the graphics are gorgeous. This pixel art style still holds up, especially from a game in 2003 on a handheld. There's not too many standout Mario DS games compared to other consoles, however there's also not too many straight up bad ones as well. Maybe the god-awful Mario and Sonic ports to the DS are technically worse, but it is possible to find fun within those titles, and they're also not entirely Mario games. That leaves us with Mario vs. Donkey Kong Mini Land Mayhem, released in 2010, and man, this franchise has just never really appealed to me. Mario is all about responsiveness, freedom of expression, and movement, but this Mario game, you don't even control Mario, like at all. You just control miniature Mario toys. It makes sense you're controlling plastic toys in this game, cause man, the controls are stiff. Controlling these mini Marios through trial and error puzzles is just boring after a while. And there's nothing in here that hasn't been done 10 times over before, even on this very console. This might not be the worst game in the world, but it's just boring, bland, and I can't believe we got like 6 of these. The best Mario game for the DS was also a bit of a struggle. Mario Kart DS accomplished the impossible achievement of making a portable Mario Kart game fun. It was the first Mario Kart game to remake retro tracks, the first and only Mario Kart game with an actual mission mode, and even the first to have online play. On the other hand, Mario & Luigi Bowser's Inside Story is easily my favorite Mario & Luigi game. The best Mario game for the DS though, I think, really is New Super Mario Bros. Before the New Soup franchise got stale, this game brought back the 2D Mario genre after 14 years. The original for the DS was and still is an excellent and creative platformer to this day. New power-ups like the Blue Shell, Mini Mushroom, and of course the Mega Mushroom truly made this game stand out and feel, well, new compared to the other Mario platformers. That is, until they basically made 5 more. This also may have the best bosses for any 2D Mario platformer of all time. Every other game just has like Bowser or the Koopalings. But having really fun and creative area-specific bosses makes this game still stand out in my mind. Not only that, but you have to use the Mini Mushroom to defeat certain bosses to unlock the secret worlds, and that was such a cool aspect. There's really nothing I would change or add about this game. This game also obviously introduced star coins, but you could actually spend them for different backgrounds on like the bottom screen of the DS, which was a nice little touch. I love New Super Mario Bros. I think this, there's a reason they made like 6 of these. There were a lot of mid-Mario games for the 3DS, but none I would say are outright bad. All of the Mario parties were mid. The sports games besides Mario Golf World Tour were mid. Even the New Soup formula was starting to get stale here too. No, Nintendo, just making everything gold does not make the game worth buying. However, the one game that I think represents the worst of the 3DS, and honestly this era of Nintendo as a whole, has to be Paper Mario Sticker Star. Now here's the thing, if this franchise started with Sticker Star, I wouldn't care all too much. It would just be a slightly below average Mario game. But considering that this game is sharing the same name as these 3 feels like an insult. Bro thinks he's on the team. Very rarely can a game's main problem be traced back to its name, but Sticker Star's main problem is, well, just the stickers. They removed any and all XP just to give you stickers, so you really don't get actually rewarded for battling. And when you're playing a turn-based RPG with a story that's vastly stripped down to previous entries, and then the battling itself doesn't even really reward you, what the heck is even the point? Sticker Star guts the interesting characters, settings, story, gameplay, and quite literally everything that makes a Paper Mario game a Paper Mario game. The 3DS as a console had quite the rocky launch. It received a price cut and, to be honest, just wasn't doing that hot until, well, this game came out. Super Mario 3D Land perfectly bridges 2D and 3D Mario seamlessly together. It may be a bit easy, but for a first attempt, it does this really, really well. Leaning into the handheld nature of the 3DS, this game is built entirely out of short, punchy levels, perfect for handheld play, and it's one of the few games where the depth perception afforded by the 3DS was actually really helpful. I feel like there's a misconception that handheld games are often like smaller, less worth it experiences. That might have been the case earlier, but 3D Land really bucks this trend. I mean, there are 8 whole bonus worlds here. There's as many bonus worlds as there are actual worlds. Other 3D Mario games may have higher highs, and 3D Land would be so vastly improved if it got a port that included 3D World-esque multiplayer, but as it stands, 3D Land is still consistently good the whole way through. At its best, it's great, but it never dips below good. Mario Kart 7 and Mario Golf World Tour are also really good titles for the 3DS, so I have to give them an honorable mention, but 3D Land definitely is the best. Alright, it's finally time. We've gone through all the dedicated handhelds, all the dedicated home consoles. Now we can finally get to our favorite hybrid, the Nintendo Switch. Don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure the Switch has by far the most Mario games out of any Nintendo console. On average, these games are pretty dang good. In fact, some of the heights of the Nintendo Switch era are the heights of Mario as a whole. However, the stinkers, while not there being too many of them, they're pretty stinky. The absolute stinkiest game came out in 2022. It's Mario Strikers Battle League. This is a poor man's imitation of one of the best games from the GameCube and Wii. What stinks is that the gameplay itself is actually pretty good. That gritty mood from the originals is here in full force, with great character animations and really interesting gameplay. Specifically, the hyper shots look great. I love this like comic booky style they went with. The only issue is there is absolutely nothing to do here. This has been kind of an issue with all Mario sports games within the past decade or so, but it rears its ugly head the most in Strikers Battle League. Well, not the most. Ultra Smash will still take the cake as by far the worst one, but Strikers Battle League, it's not even really a close second. But that's just because Ultra Smash is bad. Don't mistake that for me saying Battle League is good. It's really not. It launched in an incredibly bare-bones state. There were only like 10 characters, absolutely no single-player content, and it was only marginally improved over time. The main gimmick here is that you can pick different outfits or like gear for your player to use going into the match. These change your stats, and well, that's about it. When the big new gimmick is something that doesn't even really impact the gameplay, it's something you do in the menu beforehand, yeah, that kind of speaks to this game as a whole. There's no single-player content. All you're supposed to do is play it online, but no one else is playing the game online anymore because there was nothing to do. So it's kind of a circular downward spiral. Battle League has a really cool aesthetic with the Galactic Soccer League, and you can jam two different fields together to make one field or pitch, but that doesn't do anything with, the fields don't actually change anything. So once again, it's like completely superfluous. This game is devastatingly disappointing, and I can only hope that Nintendo doesn't look at the poor sales of Battle League and use that as an excuse to stop making Strikers games as a whole, because Strikers games are good, but Battle League was not. I think when people look back on the Switch in a few years, it'll stand out easily as having the greatest game library in Nintendo's history, and that's again no different when it comes to Mario. The sports games and Mario Party entries were a bit hit or miss, but when it came to Mario's big budget single-player adventures, this console is the absolute go-to. Just on the port side of things, the Switch gave us some of the greatest Mario games ever. Mario RPG got a remake, Thousand Year Door got a remake. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe took an already stellar Mario Kart game and made it the definitive Mario Kart experience. Even now, with Mario Kart World, I still think 8 Deluxe is better. And of course, Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury took my favorite game of all time, vastly improved it with stuff like better run speed and new moves, and added an open world campaign that somehow blends Odyssey's sandbox and the base 3D world platforming into the perfect mix, showcasing what an open world Mario game could truly look like. Mario Maker 2 took everything great from the original and added like 10 times the content. Mario Wonder somehow defied all expectations and showed the world that Mario was still the creative king of genre-defining 2D platforming. But when it comes to the Mario game that defines the Switch, I don't think it's even a contest. Mario Odyssey is the Switch. It's Mario's biggest adventure yet, but technically on a handheld. There are hundreds of unique moons to collect in this game, which encourages short pick-up-and-play sessions. However, you can still plug the Switch into your TV and get absolutely lost in this game for hours, and that's thanks to one thing, the most addictive moveset ever in a 3D platformer. Introducing Cappy not only takes this moveset up a notch, but refreshes the entire idea of what a power-up can be with the capture mechanic, turning random objects and enemies from within the kingdom into new power-ups. Speaking of the kingdom, or kingdoms, which is what the levels are called in this game, they're top-notch. So unbelievably creative, not just from a gameplay perspective, because you kind of come to expect that, but from a visual perspective as well. This is the Mario game with the most diverse-looking levels you'll ever see. There are a couple of things that people generally complain about with this game, but none of those complaints I actually really agree with. Some people say that because certain moons are easier to get than others, it kind of devalues the collectible as a whole. I genuinely could not disagree with that more. I have never agreed with that, even since like I first heard that complaint. It just doesn't make any sense to me. You don't play Mario Odyssey to check off everything on the moon checklist. You play it to have fun. If one moon is a bit too easy to grab, that on its own, sure, you could argue is a problem, but that doesn't then inherently devalue all the other moons you're grabbing. Because again, the main reason you're playing is because it's fun, not just to check stuff off on a checklist. Odyssey adopts the Banjo-Kazooie style of collectathon where you don't get kicked out of a level after picking up a moon, and I think this just kind of threw some people for a loop, honestly, I kind of view the moons more as like a bunch of star coins from New Super Mario Bros. Hidden around the kingdoms, where the story moons and multi-moons are like the main ones that you would see in like a Mario 64 or something. The only thing that I can say I don't like about this game is the multiplayer, but I don't really know how they would have actually done multiplayer. I don't know if the Switch could handle like running 2 instances of this game with split screen, and well, it seems harsh to judge this game on its subpar multiplayer mode because it didn't really need a multiplayer mode in the first place. Like that, you know, that's just not what this game is. Mario Odyssey did so much for Mario as a whole. This series will never be the same. It reintroduced Pauline to the mainstream, added in costumes, which should be a staple in every Mario game going forward, and provided one of the most enjoyable experiences that money can buy. It's by far the best original Mario game on Switch. Finally, let's talk about Nintendo's newest darling, the Switch 2. Yeah, so there are not that many Mario games for the Switch 2 so far. In fact, at the time of recording this, there's technically only 2. Mario Kart World and Super Mario Party Jamboree plus Jamboree TV. And as much hate as Mario Kart World gets online, it's clearly not the worst game here. Super Mario Party Jamboree plus Jamboree TV is a great game, but a laughably bad Switch 2 edition, and that's what we're gonna talk about. Here's the thing, Jamboree TV is completely segmented from the base game. This means that even if you're just playing the normal version of Mario Party Jamboree, if you don't select the Jamboree TV specific mode as soon as you boot this up, you won't even get like visual enhancements. Your high scores in the different mini games don't transfer between, like it really just doesn't make sense why this is segmented to this degree. More so, none of the extra content added into Jamboree TV is really worth it at all. It serves more as gimmick side content than what we all actually wanted, which would probably have been new boards. The added mouse control mini games are the only real good part, but this is definitely not worth $20. In fact, I feel like the developers here just didn't really understand the point of these Switch 2 editions while making this. Having the games be separated to this absurd of a degree is so bizarre because say you want to play Mario Party, so you just boot up the normal Mario Party mode, but then you decide you actually only want to play with 5 turns, which is an exclusive mode to the Jamboree TV. You have to back all the way out, then go all the way back. What are we doing? Mario Kart World is definitely not perfect, but honestly, once all is said and done, I think people will start to warm up to this game. It receives a lot of hate online, and for good reason. There are some very bizarre decisions Nintendo has made, mainly with the online and the price, that make it easy to kind of dunk on this thing, but when you actually play it, you kind of start forgetting about that, because man, the mechanics are amazing. The addition of rail grinding and wall riding feel like mechanics that have to come back for future entries, or else something will just feel missing now. The entire game feels so much more kinetic because of it, and that player decision and choice that you get is far more pronounced in this game than any other Mario Kart game in the series. The roster is great, and although the open world is a bit barren, this game still has far more content compared to Mario Kart 8 when that originally released. I'm 100% sure this game will be expanded over time, and although it would be nice if there was a bit more here at launch, don't let anyone tell you this isn't a good game. Even now, with the bonehead decisions Nintendo has made with the online and just all that weird stuff, this is still by far the best Mario game on Switch 2. Well, kind of because it's the only one, but even once like Mario Tennis Fever and those games come out, I still think this will be the best. Anyway, let me know if you guys enjoyed this video down in the comment section below. If you did, please drop a subscription or a like. This was a long one, but I hope you enjoyed. I mean, very controversial, I'm sure, with certain picks, but I want to hear your takes down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, clicking the video on screen right now is good because YouTube thinks you like it, and I do too. I'll see you in the next one. Thomas from the Switch Shop signing off. Peace.